All right, hey everybody, and welcome to the Vibin Higher Podcast. I'm Trevor, and I'm being joined by Laura Eisenhower. Laura is a global alchemist, intuitive astrologist, cosmic mythologist, and great-granddaughter of President Dwight Eisenhower. First of all, Laura, I'd just like to thank you for joining us. I've been a big fan of your work. I find your work and your history to be truly fascinating.
Well, thanks so much for having me. It's really great to be here.
Yeah, definitely. Well, the first thing that I wanted to get into was this idea of a true organic ascension versus a more negative timeline that might have us seeing, a new world order. And I just wanted to see from your point of view where you think we're at.
Okay, it's kind of a long, complicated thing that I'll try and summarize. But the organic ascension timeline has to do with the natural blossoming of human consciousness. Basically, once Lemuria and Atlantis sank, we were thrown into a 3D Earth experience and started to experience death and reincarnation. When we were in Atlantis and Lemuria, which was basically a higher Earth energy and dimensional planet, we didn't quite have those sort of limitations. And so because catastrophes happened, we sank into this first, second, third dimensional energy, which is harmonic universe 1. And so a new experiment was sort of conducted so that humans could ascend over a period of time. And the 12 tribes got seeded. And through death and incarnation and rebirth, of course, we would be able to pick up the codes and ascend on a slower level that we did when that's what led to the catastrophes. And so the organic ascension has to do with the natural blossoming of consciousness through reincarnations. And the reason reincarnation ended up happening, and some think, and it is partially true that we were manipulated, but at the same time there were higher beings that put in seals to our DNA so that we wouldn't evolve too quickly. But we also were manipulated with what's called frequency fences. And so that puts a barrier in our process of ascension, because what happens is as we're trying to upgrade or pick up the codes, we hit a wall. And very often when we hit that wall, we don't really understand it. And the best way to move through those walls is to journey into what we would call maybe the dark night of the soul, or going into a death rebirth process while holding on to the physical in order to break through those barriers. But there's no real encouragement except for from shamans and masters of what that really means in our day and age, to go through that level of inward journeying in order to recover the truth of who we are. And so because of manipulation, because of all this interference and intervention from other races, both positive and negative, we've been dealing with the tree of good and evil, which has to do with duality. And in the process of learning from duality and experiencing all these different incarnations, we're able to have some level of soul memory that helps us to identify the patterns, whether they be ancestral or karmic imbalances, that we need to overcome in order to achieve a higher level of consciousness, in order to not be limited by the manipulations, I guess you could say. So here we are dealing with this natural blossoming, but in the same token, we're dealing with a negative, I guess you could say, extraterrestrial agenda, and that comes from these lower archonic forces. And not just DNA manipulation, we're dealing with false flags, we're dealing with manipulation of our history, we're dealing with mind control, and all sorts of propaganda related to distortions of the masculine and feminine and the way they're presented to us that make it very difficult for us to be in our authentic true self. And so the real path of ascension is not so much about floating away or the rapture, but it has to do with recognizing ourselves as multidimensional beings and knowing that the internal work and recovery of who we are is going to provide us this access to these higher dimensions much more so than anything outside of us. And that's part of the manipulation through government, religion, and all these, outside external power structures that basically want us to be locked into this artificial matrix so that they have something to feed on, because they're parasitic. And so when we see the government structures or religion, which started off, with pretty good intentions but ended up getting infiltrated, we see so much that throws us into a level of separation from our own healing abilities, from our own connection with God, Goddess, and even the Christ energy. And everything becomes so externalized that we are in a certain level of survival, powerlessness, and emotional difficulty. And so the trap is that the medical industry wants to take advantage of this, and so people, go on pharmaceuticals, or they have diagnoses that tend to mask what the real message is, which is our bodies trying to tell us, hey, listen to me, listen to the pain, listen to, the emotional struggle and gain wisdom from it, instead of, just give the power away. And so these artificial timelines are basically constructs that feed on our own unconsciousness and our own ignorance to who we are. The organic ascension timeline has everything to do with empowerment and recognizing our own divine blueprint, how we are so deeply connected to this earth body and spirit. And this is what alchemy is all about, is recognizing this. And so when we sank into this lower density, this 3D existence, the goddess energy ended up morphing into the physical planet. And so even though we're in this 3D human experience, that's just what we see. It's sort of the illusion, because in actual fact, we're greater than that. And the core of this planet is actually seated with a 13-dimensional monadic core, meaning that this is an ascending planet. And it's an ascending planet, and sort of like a holding tank that the goddess, or the earth body Gaia, holds for us in order to develop ourselves and expand into who we truly are. It's kind of her sacrifice and her gift to us. And that's why, when we see so much exploitation of the resources and pollution and toxins in Fukushima, and the attempts to geoengineer or create weather modification, we see a direct attack on the earth. And it's also related to the divine feminine, which is within men and women. And she's allowing this for us to be able to see the outer metaphor of this sort of strange dream we're in, of where we need to wake up. It's like a call to action, and we're witnessing it. And many people just don't want to see it for what it is. And that's part of the manipulation, is that there's a lot of denial. People are making excuses for chemtrails. People are making excuses for geoengineering and this whole thing about global warming and all these different things where people will be in agreement to these agendas, thinking it's for our best, when in actual fact, it's a control system and it's all about domination. Obviously, we know that weather does not need to be controlled. Nature doesn't need to be controlled. We don't need to be controlled, because we can self-correct. We can find our own homeostasis and readjust energies when things get out of balance. And so we're really up against something pretty powerful. But the power of the human spirit is far greater. And the more we tap into that, the more we can liberate ourselves from all the things that threaten our existence. And we can also wake up the aspects of ourselves that have, I guess you could say, fallen asleep. And in that wholeness and in that calling back of our power, we are in a different dimensional energy, which has different laws than this 3D experience. It's able to transmute a lot of these insults and toxins and radiation, because the physics in higher dimensions show that spirit is much stronger than matter. But in this particular dimension, we're taught that the matter, or the physical, is more powerful than us. And that's why there's survival, illness, disease, poverty, where it's all about the money system and our health, but there's a disconnect from the abundance, the true abundance that comes from our connection with spirit and our own innate abilities to heal and transform ourselves.
Okay, cool. You actually kind of got into something there that I wanted to talk about, which is the dark night of the soul, which from my understanding, and this is something that we like to talk about on the website a lot, is this idea of, a global awakening. And my understanding of the dark night of the soul is that it's kind of like this overwhelming, maybe not negative feeling, but that when you just kind of find out that things don't necessarily work the way that we've been taught that they work, and things aren't the way that popular culture and the media tells us that they are. Is that something that you could maybe go deeper into, is this dark night of the soul idea?
Yeah, it's a lot of times, one can say it's like an ego death, and at the same time, it's a little bit deeper than that. It's a soul recognition that something's not in alignment with what we're truly made of, and in that recognition, everything that we've attached ourselves to that we thought was real, or we thought that identified us as, okay, this is who I am, and this is what I do, and this is what I'm wanting to do with my life, it all, in a sense, gets shattered, because we start to really, see that what we recognize or attach ourselves to on the surface isn't exactly true to who we are on the inside. And so as we strip away those attachments, especially without any guidance, it can feel very disorientating. It can feel like a massive death, and it can take a long time to go through that whole cycle and come out again refreshed and renewed and basically rebirthed. And the rebirth has more to do with rebirthing ourselves on our own terms, instead of submitting to the expectations of creating the American dream or having a lot of money and success and whatever it means to be a functional human that's doing what we're taught to do. It's like all of a sudden there's a deeper priority, which has to do with, maybe universal love, or a deeper calling or purpose that has to do with being a steward or guardian of the earth, or going deeper to access, dormant spiritual abilities that are not going to be that available to us when we're just sitting in the school systems. Because I always kind of joke, do we have any guidance counselors that point out, the shamans and the priestesses in the room, or the, the medicine people, or the ones that can, really work with energy medicine and really, help guide others on a deep soul level? No, those things are completely not given any attention. And instead, those type of people get medicated or projected upon or seen as a little bit odd. And very often, that isolation can be the trigger to the dark night of the soul, where the person's basically like, wait a second, there is nothing wrong with me. I need to wake up, own my truth. And that can take them on a process. And it can also be triggered by some sort of outer crisis or tragedy that doesn't make sense at first, that we later reflect on and we say to ourselves, oh my gosh, I'm so glad that happened because it really woke me up. But of course, while we're in it, it can feel like a total loss, and that can trigger the dark night of the soul. So it's either a big wake-up call from deep within, where a person might be feeling isolated and where they feel different because they're not really being addressed on a deep level, as far as maybe what their calling is or what their purpose is, because the school systems don't recognize that type of being, or, like I said, a crisis. And very often when we first begin that journey, it does feel like a death, and without having guidance, it can be even more difficult. And so when we do have guidance, sometimes it's a psychiatrist or a social worker, or somebody who doesn't really understand fully and completely because maybe they just got everything from the book. So a lot of people tend to, go off on vision quests, or maybe go into something a little bit more holistic, which is definitely the right direction to go in. But for those that just have experienced the dark night of the soul and didn't have any guidance at all, it's an opportunity to fall back on yourself and recognize your own inner strength. Because the thing is, we're not taught to embrace our darkness or our power. We're taught to fear it. Or we are, in a sense, pulled into darkness, but it's rewarded, so we don't even recognize it as darkness. There's two different types of darkness, of course. There's the type that is just sort of a lower vibe, not fully conscious type, behavior, maybe the negative ego. I mean, that can be like the shadow self darkness. But then the other kind of darkness is the darkness of our creativity, the void, where we have an ego death and we recognize the fertile soil of our soul energy. And the reason I call it soil is because it's like the soil is dark, but it receives seeds, and like a garden, those seeds end up becoming flowers, but it's dark soil. And it's like the soul, or the creative womb, or the creative energy that we all have, which is connected to our power. And so when we embrace our light and dark nature, we feel a lot more whole. But if we are taught not to embrace our darkness, or we connect to a dark aspect of self that's more the shadow and the stuff we need to clear, we never fully understand the depth of our creative abilities and our divine power. So it's about clearing or recognizing the shadow, but then going deeper and understanding that we're very, very powerful creative beings. And through embracing our darkness and going into the dark night of the soul, we hold space in that darkness. And that means that nothing else can jump in there and control us. So a lot of times when we start to feel ourselves going into the dark night of the soul, we might freak out. People can turn towards addiction or medications or anything to avoid that discomfort. But when we embrace it and we recognize it for what it really is and what it's there to teach us, we can emerge so completely powerful and so much more who we are than maybe where we were before. And it's also called the labyrinth. And a lot of ancient mythologies, describe this journey. And the divine feminine myths do as well. And of course, the metaphor or the stories about Christ and the death and resurrection, without getting biblical or what some of those stories are, recognize something similar of dying and being reborn again. And it's just this process that we're all asked to do in order for us to not be locked into the matrix, but to be on an organic path related to our soul essence and creation.
Yeah, I think it kind of goes back to that idea of, at least on a personal level, speaking to this, that it's always darkest before the dawn. Because I can say that it was definitely, for me, it was an overwhelming feeling, almost a kind of a deep loneliness. But to be completely honest with you, I wouldn't want to go back to the ignorance that I had before. So to move along, I guess my next question would be, when we talk about ascension, do you think that we're kind of on the verge here of moving into the next level of human consciousness?
Well, that's certainly available to us. We're in what's called a stellar activation cycle, and that means that the natural stargates are opening. The planet is now in alignment with the galactic plane, meaning that the transmissions coming through and the power that's coming from the core of the earth into, our feet chakras and what's coming in, into our crown chakra is very powerful. And it has to also do with what's being awakened within us, which triggers our ability to receive and to assimilate these different vibrations. But of course, we're also dealing with frequency manipulation, smart meters, chemtrails, GMOs, and all these things that are trying to kind of push us out of the way of what is really happening right now. And this is the sad part of the dark agendas and the fact that this is a real situation we're dealing with. I have a lot of information about government and extraterrestrial treaties, exchanges of technology that have really prevented us from having non-interference. And that non-interference would have allowed us to just naturally blossom, but instead it's like we're weaving our way through a lot of different distortions and roadblocks and obstacles that make it that much more difficult. But the thing is, every time we raise our vibration or we overcome an outer obstacle or we become senior to these lower forces, then we send out a vibration of healing, and it just encourages other people to do the same. It's like we have to pay attention at all times because we're basically in a frequency battle. And it's the organic divine birthright versus all these different things that are trying to siphon our creative energy away from us to then use it as a weapon against us. The thing is, people like to blame the shadow government and the Illuminati and all these different agendas, and that's fine, but we also have to take self-responsibility, knowing that we enable it when we give our power away or when we sink into a low vibration and we're not, honoring ourselves or each other, or we're, sort of the byproduct of what these agendas have done, all these different wars throughout history and how it's really been wanting to conquer and divide us so that we hold historical resentments. And we have to really look at ourselves and ask ourselves, are we a unifying agent or are we still living in the illusion of separation? And when we can start to differentiate, then we can start to really achieve, victory. And so that's completely and totally available to us right now. The astrological alignments and everything that's happening in the cosmos is assisting us, but we just have to pay attention to the things that are trying to get in our way and start to remove our energy and our attention away from it and make the priority our devotion to, truth and, what we're really made of. It doesn't mean that we ignore what's happening in the world, but we view it as more the observer, and we try and, get people to understand the game being played without getting too immersed in the fear or the anger or the things that can stop us in our tracks. It's not to say that we shouldn't feel angry or have a reaction, but it's certainly not a destination. But it can be a tool to help us locate what our passion is, which comes from the same element, fire, and then take that anger and turn it into passion and then devote one's path to, creating change so that we're not just at the mercy of what's happening outside of us. We're actually doing something and being influential and being, co-creative, because this shift is an inner shift. I mean, we are the ascension based on what we do on the inside and how we relate to others and how we unify. That's what it really comes down to. So we have to just look at that and not wait for some savior to come or expect that ascension is just granted to us. It's going to take a little bit of work and focus.
Yeah, I kind of saw that as a big issue going back a few years when people were kind of waiting on this date in 2012 that some magical moment might come when we all kind of moved into this next level of consciousness and everything would be fine and the system would crumble away. And I think people are hopefully beginning to realize that it's something that we have to do and something that we have to work at. Do you have any advice, for people out there, what they can do on a personal level to start making that change, even in their own lives, that might help the collective?
Well, self-awareness is huge, really getting to know yourself. What is your truth? What are your passions? What is your deepest soul longing? What triggers you? It's like really, really paying attention, maybe keeping a journal. Also, wow, that's such a great question. There's so many different things. Taking the thing that bothers you most and just say you look at the sky and chemtrails really bother you. And instead of having it be something that is a source of pain and anger and struggle, be a bit of an activist, but also, find the empowerment, find the message in it. Because the thing is, if we're going to share information, especially to those that can't really grasp it or handle it, there has to be positivity that's attached to it, some level of empowerment that comes with it. Because the thing is, regardless of what's happening in the outside world, everything that we don't like and everything that really bothers us can also be what helps us to become empowered. Because the thing is, we're not meant to look outside of ourselves. We're meant to look within and locate who we are and then join in this unity. Oneness is diversity and harmony. And the more we recognize ourselves and the more we know who we are and the more we really give that the attention it deserves, we're doing our part. That's our purpose. And so the things that bother us is a part of our purpose. The things that move us and inspire us is a part of our purpose. And we have to just really embrace all aspects of self, what we might not, think is positive, and integrate it into action so that it does become, a positive means for creating change. The thing is with like religion and a lot of the New Age deceptions is that, enlightenment or, being a balanced individual means that you don't have, anger or sadness or pain. And for me, and what I believe is that it's about embracing those aspects and not condemning or rejecting any part of who we are and giving it the respect it deserves by listening to the message and recognizing that, a divinity path is not about perfection. It's about being authentic and being transparent and being real. And in being real, we get to really feel into things. And I feel like, and I know, that you have to feel it to heal it. And so sometimes we battle the sensitivities that we have, and sometimes we embrace it. And I feel it's important to really embrace our feeling nature and to recognize that that's a strong aspect of who we are, not a weakness. That's part of the programming that, if you're sensitive, you're weak. If you're tough and you're strong and you can just sort of let everything roll off your back, then you're doing fine. But the thing is, the divine feminine has been exiled and the emotional body has been somewhat trashed and not given enough power or relevance. And it's the emotional energy that we hold that's our guiding principle. Because if something makes us sad, it means that we're being called to action to, shed some light on it. If something causes us pain or illness, there's a message there that's here to empower us. And we just got to know ourselves and why we feel the way we do and not judge it, but embrace it. More practical things we can do is understand energy medicine. Things like essential oils are really helpful. Being in nature, is really important. And being creative, understanding that we can get lost in our own thoughts and our own, feelings on a day-to-day level. And it's important to have those feelings, but if we don't understand them, then we tend to get lost in it. The more we can express, the more we can create, the more we can write, the more we can see our own wisdom reflected back to us, which helps us to heal. And it helps us to see that, wow, we do have an inner master. We do have an internal guidance system. We do have like extraordinary powers to overcome just about anything. But if we're lost in our heads with all these different competing thoughts that either undermine us or other people's, voices or projections or old voices of authority get locked in our thought forms, then we drown out the internal guidance coming from our intuition. And so the more we can yank that out and see it for what it is, the more the rest of the stuff that's been trying to compete with our own truth ends up falling away. This is what I did. I mean, I emerged from a lot of like incredible darkness and challenges. And when I started to write and be more creative, it lifted me out of it because I could see my internal wisdom reflected back instead of just just the chaos of what my mind was trying to process. Also, letting go of people that just don't really have a positive influence in your life. And being willing to cut away the things that don't really serve you, and boundaries. That's huge. We tend to think that, we have to be kind and nice to everybody. And yes, it's important to be kind, but not at the cost of your ability to grow and move into better relationships and better situations. So, sometimes it takes a lot of guts to just say, okay, this doesn't serve me anymore. It's time for me to leave this job. It's time for me to leave this relationship. This friendship isn't serving me, that kind of thing. That's another huge step. And I have a lot of clients, that struggle with that. They don't know how to leave. They don't know how to take risks. And, it's a lot about trust and surrender, trusting spirit. And it's not just something outside of us, it's something inside of us too. And that's what the dark night of the soul can help us to connect with. Once we go through all those different layers of discomfort and, isolation, and we just reach the core of who we are, we find that unconditional love and we find that light. And that's what the crone card in the tarot deck is all about. The crone carries the torch in the darkness. She's found her wisdom in the darkness. And that's a great navigation tool, but it takes being willing to face some of the aspects of self that we might not want to see in order to get there. And some of those aspects aren't even us. So I guess those are some things.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Well, my next question is, and I've heard you say that Mother Nature doesn't need us, or I'm sorry, Mother Earth doesn't need us to evacuate, that she needs us to clean ourselves up. And that seems to be one of the big talking points, is that, Earth can't sustain us at our current rate, and maybe not even necessarily something that I would disagree with, given our kind of slavery to fossil fuels at this point. But are you a believer in just kind of this abundance of Earth, and that she can sustain human life if we were to perhaps find a cleaner way of living?
Absolutely. I mean, the thing is that the planetary body is no different than our own physical bodies. The same laws apply. Right now, humanity's out of balance, so it attracts parasites. It attracts, all sorts of things that we end up allowing into our space because we're not fully balanced. And so when we focus on our own internal balance and we emit that vibration, we actually help the planet to heal. And so she's kind of waiting on us because the Earth responds to us. And also, of course, we respond to the Earth. It's a relationship. So we have to understand we're in a profound relationship with this planetary body, just like we're in a relationship with our own physical body. And this whole, leaving the planet, going and inhabiting a colony that's off planet, makes sense to protect the human genome, but at the same time, have we really learned anything? Aren't we going to do the same thing wherever we go? We have to kind of figure out ourselves right here and right now, and not fear death so much, but more pay attention to, what's going on in our soul. We don't want to be controlled. We want to have free will. We want to be sovereign beings. And we get so bent on survival and survival of the flesh that we forget, what's most important, which is part of what's going to help us to heal, which is tapping into something much deeper. The thing is, if we were to drop all these technologies, the geoengineering, the weather modification, all the mind control, and stop the scientific world from playing God as far as allowing people to have 8 children in one pop because they're infertile and they want to have kids, and we were to just be a little bit more smart about the way we handle things. And I'm not, saying exactly how we should do it because I have no judgment, about some of the things that have happened. When it's done with good intention, but there's many that have done things specifically, to overpopulate us, and that goes into a whole nother topic. There's a lot of different controller groups that have different agendas. Some want to thin out the population, others want us to be overpopulated because that's more slaves and more energy to feed on to keep this matrix alive. So there's different controller groups here that are competing with each other. But if we were to drop all of that, the Earth would be able to self-correct and come back into balance. The thing is, with so many interferences and so many technologies, the Earth is, dealing with all this just like we are. How can we stop them from doing this? Well, we have to understand that the global immune system is greatly activated by our unification. Our unification acts like, a strong force to help eradicate these sort of systems and dismantle them, because they're lower vibrational technologies compared to the Merkaba, the light body, and the higher dimensional technologies that are much more connected with nature. They're much more in harmony with nature. They use frequency, sound, and color instead of, how can we mind control and how can we enslave. And so we have to understand that there's far more benevolent extraterrestrial races out there that are wanting to assist us, but they're not going to really be able to help us unless we step up to the plate. Just like we can't heal on a physical level unless we step up to the plate in our own lives. If we keep eating burgers and Cokes and smoke cigarettes and drink alcohol and expect ourselves to be healthy, that's a lot to ask. We have to sort of say, okay, this needs to be dropped. I'm willing to drop that. And then we'll find that our natural system, our immune system says, thank you so much. Now I can do my work. Now I can, help you to heal and regenerate. So the same thing with the planet. We have to stop all this interference and, organically heal, because nature is a regenerative power. That's what it does by nature. And all these interferences are sort of crippling us. And so once we overcome these limitations of mind control and all the propaganda that we end up getting absorbed into when we see the news, or we, pay attention to everything that we're being fed through the media, then we have taken that step and we have stepped up to the plate, which helps us to connect to our higher self and all the beings that are a part of our higher consciousness that are here to assist us, which then starts to deal with the veil of the archonic systems, the patriarchy, and all these technologies. So we have to kind of bypass all that, raise our consciousness beyond it, and then what ends up coming in starts to transmute and starts to, turn that lead into gold. So we just have to reach for the higher, and then all that stuff kind of dissipates, just like when we take a step up in our lives and we change our diets, we detox, and everything starts to fall away and we start to heal. So it's the same laws and principles. The only thing is, no matter how much we protest and say stop spraying, it's not that easy. They might still continue. A big revolution is underway, to halt these things. But we have to know that even if they don't stop, we still have the power to overcome all of this, because spirit and what we're made of is greater than all of this. We are not powerless.
Absolutely. Well, one of the things that I did want to get into here before we run out of time is extraterrestrials, which is absolutely one of my favorite topics, and unfortunately one of the topics that is surrounded by the most taboo and skepticism, which I don't remember the exact details of it, but I remember hearing something about a concerted effort on the part of the government, perhaps the CIA, to deliberately kind of make it into a sort of a joke topic. And you can absolutely see that in culture and the way that people kind of react to these things. I mean, I see it. I've got friends that kind of don't take me seriously because of the things that I talk about and some of the things that I'm interested in, which I think is terribly unfortunate, given just the gravity of what something like that might entail. So
right.
One of the things that I wanted to ask you about was there's a lot out there about a meeting that your great grandfather might have had with beings from, I think you've said before, Venus in 1954. I was wondering if maybe we could get into that a little bit.
Well, there's 3 different meetings. The one in 1954 was with the Nordics, and then there was a meeting with the Greys, and then later that's when the beings from Venus came. It's a very, very complicated history. I'm actually working on I'm like a 20-page paper right now. I'm going to be presenting in Italy at the hearings, Citizens Hearing Disclosure.
Oh, wow.
About all this. And basically, I've learned a lot. And these treaties actually originated with Roosevelt and Hitler. We have had extraterrestrial or alien technology for quite some time, and in wartime, the Second World War, Hitler, had some technologies. And basically, Roosevelt signed a treaty with the Greys, and the treaties supposedly get renewed every 10 years, so that by the time Ike got into office, it was already pretty well established. There was already these 3-letter organizations, and there was major, major penalties if you disclosed any of this sort of stuff. Imprisonment, even, death. It's just like a very complicated time in history. And so when the Cold War really, ended up being about this arms race and just who had the bigger bombs and just like all this kind of stuff. There was an extraterrestrial race, the Nordics, that came that wanted us to, get rid of all those weapons because other races are affected by the detonation of these weapons. And at the same time, there was no exchange of technology after the Palladians tried to work with Hitler, and he ended up using the technologies for negative purposes. They didn't want to exchange technology anymore, and the Joint Chiefs of Staff and some of the folks in the shadow government refused to, want to give up the weapons. And there was a lot of stuff already going on with technology exchanges before I got into office that involved cloning technologies and mind control. So the fact that we had an infiltrated American government made it very difficult for the president to make any decision on our behalf that would have helped to steer us in the right direction. Basically, when the Greys showed up, their technology was so advanced that we didn't have any defense. So there was nothing we could really do but basically surrender. They call it a treaty, but when you research a lot of the whistleblowers, they actually call it a surrender. And in actual fact, even another whistleblower named James Casbolt, who grew up in these projects, said that it was a group called Ultra that signed the treaties, and it was a group of cloned humans. One maybe was a clone of Ike, I'm not too sure. And so that all, was a renewal of these things that already happened during the Second World War. Then we had Project Paperclip. All the Nazi scientists moved into the American government. We had things like Montauk and the Philadelphia Experiment, Area 51 and the Dulce Wars, and all sorts of things that are so jumbled up. And I have it all written out in chronological order, which will be a lot more articulate than what I'm trying to share. But the whole point is that we've been making exchanges with an ET race that has been abducting us and taking our genetic information in order to help their own species survive. And they broke the treaties and ended up really getting out of control and basically have compromised our ability to ascend because of it. And Dan Burrish, who's a whistleblower for MJ12, said that their future human selves that time traveled back, their race almost died out, and that's why they needed our assistance. But they ended up being extremely unethical. And so in our surrender or so-called treaty, it ended up getting so blown out of proportion that we've been dealing with millions of abductions, and there's many, many contact stories. The reason that it's in secrecy and they don't want us to know is because not only would it hold them accountable on some level for creating these technology exchanges, it would also point to where humans have used these technologies in a negative way, like the military-industrial complex. Most of the ET races that are involved in the military-industrial complex are negative. The one that was positive, that was trying to help us, those technologies got abused by the humans. So it's the same thing in Atlantis, where our spiritual development and our use of technology has not been in harmony with each other. The ego tends to go out of control when it has a certain level of power. It's like the Lord of the Rings, the Ring of Power. It's a misuse of power when there is a lot of power. And so the beings from Venus came, and they wanted to help us to get out of all the troubles we are having with this, lower ET race. But the shadow government shut it down, and they ended up staying on Earth, and they're stationed around the planet trying to help us from afar, I guess you could say. But the thing is, for people that are trying to get in touch with this for the first time, it's hard, especially when somebody like me's been immersed in it, my whole life. I almost have to remind myself, like, oh my God, people can't even accept the concept of there being extraterrestrials, and I'm like already at the end point of so much of it that I have to kind of back up and recognize, like, oh wait, we have to do ET 101. We have to just get people comfortable with the idea that we are dealing with extraterrestrials. But we're multidimensional beings, and these beings are all connected to us. There's some that plug into our negative ego and play on our humanness and our desire for greed and power and fame. And it's easy to work with those kind of beings. But there's many, many, many benevolent races that are just so there for us. And but these races have been at war with each other for so long. So for people that are getting in touch with this for the first time, first of all, look at all the movies that you've seen, look at all the television series and Star Trek. Where do you think they get this information from? And then second off, do your research. You're going to hear somebody like me for the first time and think I'm cuckoo, and that's fine. I've done my research. I've studied this. I have clients. I have abductees and contactees for clients. I'm working with people every day trying to help them deal with this stuff. I know, an incredible amount of whistleblowers, people that have survived these projects. I've been on panels with people that have worked worked at Montauk, like Preston Nichols. I sat next to Travis Walton at a panel, and he, his story was The Fire in the Sky, that movie. So first of all, see that movie. It's based on a true story. I've met the person, he's got a website, and start to just really, look to each other, look to the people, not to the government. I mean, when does the government ever tell the truth anyway? Our tax dollars are going into all these, hidden projects, these black op projects, and basically for them to keep the secret alive, there has been illegal drug trades, there's been illegal activity going on within our governments in order to be able to fund keeping the secrecy alive, and that involves paying people to smear those that are actually telling the truth. People like William Cooper have died, Phil Schneider has died, people that have been trying to help us, that have been whistleblowers that have worked for the shadow government, have come out and revealed this stuff. So, you can deny it all you want, but it's staring us in the face, and there's too many stories to deny, and even people like Carl Sagan were silenced. And that's why his final movie, Contact, was like his last, chance to just sort of say, hey, there's a lot more to the picture than what we're being told. And, yeah, I mean, the best thing you can do is just research, because hearing it for the first time from somebody like me is never going to be enough. It's going to be too hard to process. But, when you do jump into the rabbit hole, which I've built a tent, I live in the rabbit hole, just be gentle with yourself. Don't let it freak you out. Remember, we're multidimensional. There's far greater races. And look at it as like the human body. The immune system is like our higher races, our higher self. And the things that make us sick, the things that, are parasitic, whether it's an addiction or the television or relationships that don't work for us, that's just the same sort of thing we're dealing with on the planet. And so we simply got to cut relations to the things that don't serve us and align with the things that do. And when each one of us takes that stand, we end up starving the beast. We end up starving the systems that are feeding on all of us, buying into the facade, because the facade is not telling us the truth. It's just telling us what they feel we need to hear to either keep us in fear or to keep us distracted or to lead us to believe that they're actually helping with things like the war on terror and the things that matter to us. But in actual fact, they're covering up, what's really going on behind the scenes. As we know, 9/11 was not what it was.
All right. Well, I know that we're running short on time here, but I did want to, maybe if we could close with just kind of a quick question, whether or not you think that we are actually getting close to that moment of disclosure, whether it comes from the government or however it may happen, whether we are close to that moment of kind of that disclosure of, the existence of extraterrestrial races and how we've been interacting with them.
Well, I think disclosure has been happening for a long time. It's out there. It's on the internet. It's on YouTube. There's tons and tons of stories. Is it going to come out of Obama's mouth? I highly doubt it. For all we know, he's a clone. And we're not dealing with what we really what we see is not necessarily what is real. And I don't want to say that as a fixed belief, but we have to watch out for that. The thing is, when they do finally disclose it, they're going to disclose it in a way that is going to encourage and kind of control our thinking process about it. We want disclosure that's fully transparent, that talks about every element of all these hidden projects, of the galactic history that we've been dealing with. We don't just want to hear, oh, there's extraterrestrials, they're here to help us, and here's their advanced technology that's going to help us to clean up the planet. Well, we have to also understand that those very beings might be the ones that are behind the destruction. And it's the same thing with the war on terror, where we see a catastrophe happen and then the leaders come in and act like heroes, when in actual fact, behind the scenes, there's a deeper conspiracy going on. Mm-hmm. So we have to be careful who we hear disclosure from and not just buy into what's being told. We have to get the full picture as best as possible. And the best picture comes from whistleblowers. It comes from people who have had experiences. And the things like the citizen hearing disclosures are a really good one, because, when I speak, to me, that's my disclosure. Whoever can take it, and leave it if you can't. But this is the disclosure. It's us coming forward. It's the people. And then the governments are going to have to answer to us rather than the other way around. Because there's a lot of things that they're probably not going to want to address. And there's a lot of things that they're going to present to us that are going to cause some sort of submission. Same thing with, like, if martial law gets introduced. They're going to say that it has to be to protect us from terrorists, when we know that that's not really the case. The same thing with the economy collapsing. It's going to be a controlled collapse. None of what we see outside of us is necessarily, just what us as humans is dealing with because we made mistakes. There's things that are carefully planned out specifically to pull us into a whole nother type of system, which is based on artificial intelligence computers, based on RFID chips, and all sorts of things that are, they've had movies that are showing these sort of futures, and we don't want that. And this is the window period right now where we can act. Their quantum access technologies and time travel technologies have never been able to access this window period we're in. This is because it's a very significant window period for us to rise above all of it. But we stand just as much of a chance of being completely distracted away from our purpose right now. So we have to be the disclosure. We have to empower those that have witnessed it, that are telling the stories, and not wait for Obama and trust that whatever's going to come from our governments is going to be the truth. They might say, yes, there's extraterrestrials, but the way they spin it and the way they share these agendas might be distorted in order to immerse us more into the control agenda.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Laura. This has been, absolutely incredible, and hopefully we can do it again sometime. Did you want to let everybody out there know, where they can get in touch with you or where they can follow your work? I know that you've got the radio show, Awaken the Dream Radio, which is available on iTunes. And I'll, of course, have all the links on all the channels that this gets uploaded on. But is there anything that you'd like to let everybody know before we kind of sign off here?
Yeah, my website's cosmicgaiasophia.com. And I'm Laura Magdalene Eisenhower on Facebook, and I post a lot there. And then my partner and I share a site called touroflove.com. And you can subscribe to our newsletter, and you can get the newsletter once a week. And it's basically all the events that we're doing, my astrological forecast for the week, other links of stuff that we're doing, and just basically updates. And on the website, the two that I gave, you'll see the upcoming events that we have. I'll be speaking the next one in San Francisco at the expo there. But Facebook's a really good place. I'm always updating stuff and sharing there. So
awesome. Well, thank you very much again, Laura. Your insight is just incredible, and you've really, this talk has given me a lot of hope. So thanks, and hopefully we can do this again sometime.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's been great.
All right, bye-bye.
Okay, bye.